Bienvenidos. Welcome to the Hispanic Heritage Month speaker. I would like to start out by acknowledging the land in which we bring you this virtual presentation. We are honored to acknowledge that the community colleges of Spokane and our main campuses are located on the traditional and sacred homelands of the Spokane tribe. We also provide services in a region that includes the traditional and sacred homelands of the Confederated Tribes of the Cowville Reservation and the Kalispel tribe. We pay our respects to the tribal elders, both past and present, as well as to all Indigenous people today. This land holds their cultural DNA, and we are honored and grateful to be on their traditional lands. We give thanks to the legacy of the original people and their descendants and pledge to honor their stewardship and values. I challenge each of us to reflect on these words and honor them. This virtual presentation was made available by a group of colleges and universities in Washington State and is listed on the screen. A huge thank you to these schools. We will have time for some questions throughout this presentation. If you ask them in the chat on YouTube, they will be forwarded on to our facilitator, Nadine from Walla Walla Community College. Maria has expressed she's open to all questions and loves to engage with the audience, so feel free to participate. It is my pleasure to introduce our speaker today. Maria was born in La Ciudad de Mexico, Mexico City, Mexico, and immigrated to the United States to live in Chicago with her family at a young age. She is the anchor and executive producer of the Peabody Award-winning show Latino USA, as well as co-host of the In the Thick, an award-winning political podcast. Maria's nearly 30-year career as an award-winning journalist includes reporting for PBS, CBS, WNBC, CNN, NPR, and anchoring the Emmy Award-winning talk show from WGBH, Maria Hinojosa, One-on-One. She's the author of 2 books, the most recent, Once I Was You, a memoir of love and hate in torn America, and has won dozens of awards, even being honored with her own day in October by the New York City Mayor, Bill de Blasio. And I believe that day is actually tomorrow, October 9th. It is my honor to welcome Maria Hinojosa.
Hey, I can't hear you. Let me hear the applause. It's great to be here. Thank you, Nadine. I just wish I was with you there in Spokane, and thank you for that beautiful land recognition. I do appreciate it. My gosh, the last time that I was in Washington State, wow, is it possible that I haven't been back since 2015? My goodness, I was actually on the Yakima reservation doing reporting about Latinos and Latinas being the largest population on an indigenous reservation in the United States of America, in the Yakima reservation, which, as you know, is a difficult subject, right? Although there is a lot of love, and we saw that amongst families, and a absolute recognition of Latinos and Latinas and our ties to indigenous peoples across the Americas. But I do love your part of the world. I think I was in Walla Walla at some point, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure. I remember the airplane ride into an airport in between a lot of mountains. So thank you for inviting me. And I also want to take a moment. I told the team, I was like, I love speaking to community colleges. I just love it. Those of you who are in school in community colleges, you're my heroes. And I say that being a college professor. I have students. I was a professor at DePaul University in Chicago for 7 years, and now I'm a professor at Barnard College in the Ivy League, my alma mater. So I have top tier students, and I love it. I love teaching. We start every class with meditation. Since I'm missing class next week, the week after, I'm bringing bagels, and in the afternoon class, we're having pizza. Like, I love my students. I do. But students who are in community college, y'all are my inspiration. Y'all are the ones who are like, no me rindo. I'm going to keep doing this. I got a vision. I'm enrolling and I'm sticking to it. And for some of you, that may mean later going on to a 4-year college. And finally, maybe getting that master's and the PhD. I just have to tell you that some of our most prized employees at Futuro Media are employees who started a community college and then either finished college or did not, but that they started a community college and they are now full-blown producers at Futuro Media, producing award-winning, hard-hitting, incredible journalism. And they started a community college because the people who go to community college, you know this, you have ganas. And ganas is, you cannot teach people to have ganas. You have ganas. And that is something that is in you, that makes you get up every day and do the work and then go to community college and then go to work and then do your homework and then take care of the kids and go to the job and then go to community college and take your, yeah, you got this. So I just really want to encourage you to always be patting yourself on the back and knowing that you are capable of anything. And know that at least this person who you haven't met, but you've seen on this Zoom is telling you, tú eres mi héroe. You are. So keep at it. Whatever it is. There's another phenomenal human being who started community college. His name is Dr. Q. He wrote a book called Becoming Dr. Q, formerly undocumented Mexican immigrant who worked in the fields. He is now the head of neurosurgery at the Mayo Clinic. And he started a community college. So now, the reason why I applaud you is because the truth is that, and I'm speaking now specifically about Latinos and Latinas and immigrants, right? Because this is Latinx Heritage Month. This can be a confusing time for us because we have all these dreams. We're going to make these things happen. And at the same time, we feel invisible. Oftentimes, we don't feel seen. We feel, in the worst cases, targeted and disrespected. And in many ways now, from being invisible, we went to being hyper visible. It's just that we became hyper visible in a narrative that we didn't create, which is why images of, thousands of people at the border are always challenging, because it makes all of us seem like the narrative is that we are an unruly group of people who don't know how to follow orders, and that we are just desperate and that we are takers. And that couldn't be farther than the truth. Again, you are a symbol of that. You are the antithesis to that narrative that says, oh, Latinos and Latinas, they're just, takers. I mean, we had a presidential candidate who started his campaign by using hate speech against Mexicans, against people like me. So together now, we have to deconstruct that narrative. It's a lot of work, but we're not going anywhere, so we have to do it. Here's a piece of data that I need you to know and remember all the time. So if you look at the census from the last 10 years, Latinos and Latinas accounted for half of the total US population growth. In the last decade, we accounted for half of the total US population growth. That's huge. That's why we're 64 million Latinos and Latinas in the United States. So we have power. We are the second largest population cohort in the United States. We're not a racial cohort because Latino is not a race, it's an ethnicity. We are every race. We are Black Latino, we are Indigenous Latino, we are lighter Latino, we are white Latino, Asian Latino. But we are the second largest population cohort after white America. And we're the second largest voting bloc in the United States. The second largest voting bloc. Our votes could determine what happens in the entire country if we're participating in democracy. So that's why visibility is so important to me, because I am all about saying we're visible, we are present, I'm telling your stories, I'm giving you a microphone to tell your own story, I'm giving you a way to amplify what you have lived through. Because my hope is that others hear this, consume it, see it, and say, my story matters. I matter. My voice matters. My vote matters. I matter. So it's a way in which we constantly have to be transforming this narrative about you are powerless, you are a problem. And actually, we are powerful and we are the solution. So as you move in your life as students and as workers, I need you to be thinking that what you're doing is you're doing this for you. Absolutely. But you're actually having a huge impact on American history, American society, American economy. So if Latinos and Latinas, if we were measured by gross domestic product, our gross domestic product would be the 7th or 8th largest in the world. Right now, Latinos and Latinas are propping up the housing market. Even though we lost jobs, suffered unemployment, get paid less money, ahorramos, and we're buying houses. So we are actually pushing the housing market return in this country. We're building those houses. You know that all across the state of Washington. Who is building the houses? Who's also buying the houses? Latina consumers, most powerful consumers in the entire United States, because we over-index over Black women and white women in terms of being the ones in our household who decide what is going to be bought. So we decide the cereal, the paper towel, the dishwashing liquid, the detergent, the books, the TV shows, the movies. Latinas decide that for the entire household. So we are the super consumers. Also because we're brand loyal. I mean, when I talk brand loyalty, I always love to tell people, because, you know, I live across the country from y'all. So I love to tell people like, oh, you do know that there are Latinos out there that love that they are from Washington State. Oh, they love Spokane. You do know that there are Latinos who are like, this is the Yakima. This is my place. Or they're from Nebraska, or they're from Idaho, or they're from Arkansas. And these Latinos are local pride. Don't touch Arkansas. I mean, like, yeah. Or no me voy de Mississippi. I love Mississippi. Even though Mississippi may be treating them badly. But I love Mississippi. No me voy. And so we have to embody this notion that we are not a minority. It's a word I never use. I never use the term minority to describe myself. Of course, I never use the term illegal to describe a human being. Never use the term illegal alien, illegal immigrant, an illegal person. No, a person is not illegal. So together, we all are responsible for flipping the narrative and correcting the narrative about who we are. And that's why I'm so proud of you for what you're doing. That is correcting the narrative, making decisions about your own life, working hard to make those dreams come true. Listen to me. Ya tengo muchos años en esto, so I've been around a while, which means some dreams don't come true immediately. But poquito a poquito, chipping away, little by little, slow and steady, always dreaming big. Because, one of my biggest dreams was to be in a Hollywood movie. And after many decades, it came true. I'm in the Heights. If you haven't seen it, see it. It's adorable. I know, it's adorable. And I'm in it. It's a dream come true that I dreamed for decades. And if it's one thing that Latinos and Latinas know, it's how to dream. And I'm here to say, yeah, it may take a while, pero mantén ese sueño. And see, I feel like I don't even need to say that to you because y'all are doing it. The fact that you're there means I'm choosing the side of believing in myself. And that's why I love you so much and so proud of you. And I'd love to hear your questions now. AMA, ask me anything.
Thank you so much, Maria. I resonated with a lot that you said, especially La Familia in Arkansas. What are you doing in Arkansas, and coming home and, saying that's where they want to be, right? I appreciate that. We have quite a bit of questions I have for you here around journalism. So journalism tends to be a boys' club and a white boys' club. How do you navigate that as a Latina woman? What made you decide to go into journalism in the first place? And what advice do you have for someone in journalism? Let me know if you want me to repeat anything.
No, that's fine. So, yes, you're right. I was just in a situation where I was the only woman. I was just receiving the Medal of Honor for Distinguished Service to Journalism from the University of Missouri in Columbia, Missouri. And I was like, okay, I'm the only woman here. And then I was like, I think the truth is that as women, especially as women of color, we tend to overperform. And it's just like we want to be like entertaining everybody and making sure that our stories are sparkling and interesting because we're like the only one. And I was like, wow, you're doing that, Maria. And then I was like, you know what? You don't need to say anything. You can be quiet. I'm older now, right? So I'm just like, but I realize that even still today, I'm still in that situation where I'm the only one. Yeah. And I don't let it faze me. Like, that's the other thing. I'm like, oh, cool. All right. And I see it as like a challenge to myself. For those of you who want to be journalists, first of all, please don't ever give up. If you have the inkling that you're like, I think I want to do this, paso por paso. Like I said, I have producers now who when they started, they were undocumented and they started volunteering at the local station or at the small little newspaper in Spanish, poquito a poquito. And now here they are, and they're producing national documentary work that's winning awards at Futuro Media. So don't give up. Find your allies around you. That was very important to me as being the only one, is finding other women in the business and other women of color who could kind of help guide me and talk me down, because sometimes you do get very angry and upset, and you don't really want to be operating like that. And again, I think it's because it's interesting. Like, I'm thinking, why is it that you're so easily able to move kind of in male dominated spaces? And I'm like, well, I went to an all women's college, Barnard, but at the time there was an all men's college next door, Columbia. And I would spend a lot of time at Columbia. And I think maybe being like one of the few women amongst the Columbia men also taught me to just hold my own. And then finally, I would just say, when you realize that you have privilege to be doing this work, you have a responsibility to do it.
I love that. I'm going to switch some of the questions around here. So what role did you play in the Heights? And then go ahead. Oh, drink. Yeah, no problem. No problem. If you have any other questions, please put them in the chat. Like Maria said, ask her anything. to what's her favorite food. You guys are asking some really great questions, folks. I'm excited to ask them to Maria. So keep them coming.
Like I got a piece of dust.
Oh no, that's okay.
But go ahead.
Okay. So we have a question around the new movie, In the Heights. I love Lin-Manuel Miranda. I want to know what it's like to meet him, and then others wanted to know what role did you play in that movie? If you can, if not, it's okay. Mhm. I know.
You know how when you swallow something and it gets into your throat, that's what just happened. And I'm just like, oh my God, I'm dying here. And I need something to suck on, but I'm trying to find it. Anyway, let me try and power through. So I've known Lin-Manuel. What? No. So I've known Lin-Manuel for many years. I met him at right when In the Heights was going to Broadway. And he was eating Chinese food out of a styrofoam box, and I'll never forget that. I had my kids with me and they were just like, this is pretty funny. Because he's not this big star. He wasn't then. So the thing is, it turned out that I actually knew Lin-Manuel's dad.
Oh.
So it was kind of like I knew him quite well. I just never knew he had a son. And Lin-Manuel is also a bit of a ham. I wish maybe I can pull up the pictures and I can show you, because when I went to film In the Heights, the first day on the set was the first day of shooting. And there were a bunch of people and Lin-Manuel was there, and I went up to him and I was like, hey, Lin, can we take a picture to kind of mark this occasion? And I took out my phone and I was like, here, we can do a selfie, because I've done selfies before. And he was like, give me the phone. You don't know how to do the selfie here. Boop, 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 boop. And he did the selfies and I was like, this is Lin. Like you, I mean, I think Lin it's incredible because again, I knew him when he was just like a tiny little star, and to watch him blow up. I guess I'll share this final piece of information. When I interviewed him after Hamilton was going to go to Broadway, and I said to him, ice cream is good for the throat. And I said to him, wow, Lin-Manuel, can you believe it? Like, you created this play, Hamilton. It's the hottest ticket in all of New York City. Everybody wants to see this. You're moving to Broadway. Hamilton moved to Broadway and it sold out like this, like it broke all the records of all the pre-sale events, tickets. And Lin-Manuel was everywhere. It was on the buses, And I said, can you believe all of this, Lin-Manuel? And he said, yeah. And I was like, what? He was like, I dreamed about this. I said, I imagined this. I imagined this in my mind because he said it was so hard. There were many days when I didn't know what I was doing and I thought I was crazy. And he says in those moments, I would convince myself that this was going to be a huge, huge deal. And I was just like, whoa. it's a lesson to learn.
Yeah.
You tell yourself it's going to be amazing. I'm suffering now in the writing of it, but in the end, it's going to be incredible. And also, Lin-Manuel does not work alone. He, Chiara Alegria Hudes wrote the screenplay for In the Heights, the movie. So she works very closely with Lin-Manuel. So I always thought, oh my God, all these people, they just do it all alone. No, they have a team, just like I have a team. The pieces that you hear on Latino USA, it's not me with a, with a typewriter, so cute. Me with a computer. I have producers and we work together and we collaborate. But yeah, Lin-Manuel, it's pretty cool. I have to say, it's pretty nice to be able to say like, hey, Lin, now, does he return my emails? Maybe not. But you take what you can get.
I love that. That's awesome. Well, first I wanted to tell you, we have about 200 people watching on YouTube so that you know who you're talking to. And then we have some folks, as you know, in Spokane. So all of Washington is here, loving your words. A couple of things. Maria, we love and appreciate you. Te miras linda. I got some comments I wanted to share. Let's see. Our next question is about a new podcast coming. So do you have a new podcast coming? And can you tell us about it? It's a dramatic podcast. Is that right?
Oh my God, I love you. So I have all these people watching on YouTube as I lost my voice. That's great. Well, it's live. That's what happens. Whoever asked this question, I love you. Thank you so much for asking. So I'm going to tell you the backstory. When the last president was elected, and I was really very concerned about what had happened in our country and what the future looked like. Scared, really scared too. Somebody told me, the most incredible art was produced during the time of World War II, the Nazi era, also during the end of the 1960s when this country was again on fire. And I thought, in that case, I'm going to see this time of politically challenging times as a way to inspire myself to just be like, I'm going to be as creative as possible. What can I imagine? What like, if we don't want to be living in this reality, so what can I imagine? What can I do? What can I, and this project basically came upon us to work at creating a fiction podcast about reimagining the world. It's called We Imagine Us. And it's a fictional podcast starring Karrueche Tran. And if you're like, who's Karrueche Tran? If you've ever watched the TV show Claws, she's the star of it. It stars a Black Vietnamese central character and her father, loosely based on the story of George Floyd, very loosely. He's from Texas and he's on his way to Minnesota with his daughter, who's Black Vietnamese. It's called The Long Way Around. It's part of this project called We Imagine Us. And I'm just, it's exciting. It's getting ready to drop soon. I think we're dropping the trailer today or tomorrow. I just saw it. It's good to go. I would hope that you all see it, participate. Let me know your thoughts. I feel like the pandemic, first it was just this challenging political situation, and then the uprising. Then the pandemic and then the uprising. And I feel like we've been challenged in so many ways. And I feel a lot of inspiration from people who have never given up. And so this is a time to, again, I had COVID very early on. And so I swear I'm like really happy every single day that I'm alive. I have somebody very close to me right now. I can't say who it is, but you probably will know at some point. But this person is in the hospital with COVID pneumonia right now. And it's a very delicate time. So I'm thankful for every breath. And that inspires me to break all the boundaries, keep pushing. And I get that inspiration from my students and from young people and from students like you who are at community college.
Thank you. This one has been asked a couple of times, so I want to go ahead and ask that. Who inspired you most in your life? Who's your biggest inspiration?
I would definitely say my mom. Like on a day-to-day. She's 85 and retired now. She still swims a mile or two in Lake Michigan when she's in Chicago. But my father was a medical doctor dedicated to research. He helped to create the cochlear implant to help those people who are deaf who wanted to hear. So he was a very a brilliant professional. My mom never graduated high school, and yet I saw her find her voice and become a full woman. And then she became an activist around domestic violence and Latinas and became a national activist and raised 4 kids along that and made a home cooked meal every single night for a total of 6 people. How did she do that? Every single night, a home cooked, like we never ordered out. Do you understand? Never, because we couldn't afford it. Her process of owning her voice, owning her feminism, treating us with so much love. So that's a very personal kind of inspiration. I think if you read Once I Was You, you'll see that there are a group of women who are kind of my cohort who have been at my side. And then more recently, I've really found deep inspiration from journalists who are no longer here. Jovita Idar, who Mexican-American from El Paso, journalist from the turn of the century. Ida B. Wells, who was born into slavery and becomes a free woman and investigative journalist. And my founding father, Frederick Douglass, first Black man, freed, formerly enslaved, who creates and runs his own newspaper, the North Star. So, and then truly, I find inspiration on a daily from the people who are around me who are like, the people who are not seen. We're just, and I find their humility and their commitment to love and happiness in life to be very inspirational on a daily basis.
Love that. That's great. We have a few questions around the term Latinx, and I'd like to get a little, insight from you. So, given the lack or familiarity associated with the term Latinx, should it be nixed from the social and political vernacular in favor of a more neutral term, Hispanic?
So I don't use the term Hispanic. I don't think it's neutral at all because Hispanic basically invisibilizes the indigenous side of ourselves, the Afro side of ourselves, the African side of our roots. So Hispanic is, si eres España, eres hispano. Y si hablas español, eres hispano, but you are more than just hispano, right? And I'm always thinking about evolving, and how we are thinking about our identity. So again, I don't think Hispanic is neutral. I think it's actually highly political in a way that attempts to kind of homogenize and erase a kind of historical perspective. Now, Latino and Latina, it's not perfect. I do a show called Latino USA. So maybe you get a sense of where my allegiances lie. We're not going to change the show right now. We're not going to change the name of the show. And Latinx, I understand why, the theoretical understanding of why, so that we have a non-gendered language. But the truth is that I have a lot of transgender people who I know, many who are friends, and they appreciate being gendered. So that's why I usually use Latino and Latina. I'll just say it. And I'll throw Latinx there every now and then. I think it's evolving. I think that there's a whole conversation about, what does Latinidad really represent, and how do we understand this, and how is it inclusive or exclusive? And I think it's evolving. But for me, by the way, I also don't like the word neutral. I feel like right now in this moment in history, it's very difficult to be neutral about anything. I mean, I guess I would be neutral about, a lake. I'm neutral. I love lakes, but other than that, I'm very passionate, and I don't want to be neutral. I want to understand that in this moment, we have to kind of take sides, and on where we stand.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm going to utilize the words that folks put in the questions. How important is it to have a Latinx club in a community college, which is half BIPOC? And what advice would you give to Latinx students who are the only person in their class and may be feeling somewhat isolated or unworthy?
So whether or not to have a Latinx club, it's like, I always feel it's weird for me to tell you what to do because you're in Spokane or someplace else in Washington State. And I'm like, yes, you must have a Latinx club. If the student body is saying, look, I really would appreciate this, like it's nice to feel this kind of camaraderie, or I want to organize a protest. A young woman who I met who was battling the same kind of thing in Southern Utah. And she was like, I'm making the organization, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to have a protest in support of DACA. And then the whole campus came out in support of her. And it was like, wow, she never expected that. So I kind of feel like it's a very organic decision for you all as a student body. Do we want this? Do we need this? And go for it. I mean, I was a member of all of the clubs, all of them. And people were like, why? Why are you a member of the Chicano caucus, but also a member of Alianza Latinoamericana? And I was like, because I'm a Latina who sees myself as borderless. I believe I am borderless. So that was my ethos as a college student. What was the second part of the question? It was really good.
Yeah. What advice do you give to someone
who right, but feeling isolated, right? So own it. I think I realized at NPR when I was the first Latina hired that I was just not going to be able to blend in. Like I just was not going to be able, that was not the way I was going to be able to make it. I was just not the kind of, I can just blend in and be quiet kind of person. And when I realized that I had privilege, then I was like, oh my God, I have the responsibility to speak up. So to you in the community college, I've just been telling you like all of the data of what Latinos and Latinas represent in American society by data. And so I'm like, almost like you have a responsibility to speak up in that classroom when you're the only one, because you have to say, hi, as a representative of the fastest growing demographic in the United States of America, I want to share my opinion about. Now, you're probably like, I'm not going to do that. That's silly, Maria. That's okay. But in your head, if you're telling yourself you have to raise your hand because you represent an important part of the demographic of this state, of the community college, of the country, force your hand up and just be like, and understand that that's why you're doing it. It's like you're not even doing it for you're doing it in name of, I have to be visible. I have to be visible so that so that you see me, because I need you to see me. I need you to understand, like I am here. So I'm going to ask a question because I want you to see me. And I want you to understand how I process the world. And if you are like, wow, nobody else is saying this and it feels so different, that's okay. I know it's scary, but what's going to happen? Are you going to fall off a chair or something? And if you do fall off the chair, what are you going to do? you're going to get back up? Who is somebody going to say something to you that is, so it may feel like you're scared, but I need you to push through because it's like a responsibility to this moment in history. That's how I felt when I was in that newsroom. I was like, well, I'm very immigrant-y, like you didn't come all the way from Mexico to get into a newsroom and then just be quiet. Like that would be silly. And so your families didn't do all of this for you to be in your classroom and to be too afraid to raise your hand, even though you're terrified. I'm afraid a lot of the time. I have fears. That would be silly, if to say no. So, but I like you, continue to find the inspiration to be just like, yeah, well, I may be afraid, but I boy. So hold on to that.
I know you talk a lot about this on your show. How do you see the importance of immigration versus topics such as healthcare and jobs through the lens of the Hispanic community? Is there often contentions with the importance of immigration?
Right. I mean, I totally get this, right? I am an immigrant. And so I am obsessed with this also because I realized when I was writing Once I Was You that I was almost taken from my mother as an immigrant. So this goes deep. It's like a historical trauma that I'm resolving by being a journalist reporting about this. Absolutely. On the other hand, is this the only thing that Latinos and Latinas care about? Absolutely not. That's part of why I do the show In the Thick, which is a political talk show, because we're talking about what's happening in Capitol Hill. We're talking about the media. We're doing journalism criticism, media criticism. We're talking about the economy. We're talking about Joe Biden. We're talking about lo que sea from a Latino perspective. Because we have opinions about everything. Afghanistan, Iraq, September 11th, food, culture. So that's why I created that show, right? Was to show that we have this diversity of opinion. But I have to be very honest with you on the issue of immigration. While I know that a lot of people are like, please, like, that's because we don't understand, or you don't understand the level of horror to which we have arrived in this country. And and I cannot walk away from that. So so it's really on you and on us to make sure that this notion that it's okay for a country to take children and put them in cages, or women or men, is wrong. And so that is going to end up on our shoulders. We know it now. And that's why I talk about it all the time, because it's going to end up on our shoulders. And I want to be part of the team that takes this down and changes the narrative.
Thank you. Another question came in. What is one thing that is part of your culture that has caused a wall between you and someone else that has a vast difference? And how did you handle that? What's some way you can deal with those type of things that happen?
Well, so homophobia. So I have a member, I have probably a few members of my family where this is kind of like a wall that they can't get through. And so I'm always very sweet, but I made sure that that particular cousin got a copy of my book, that I dedicated it to him, that he saw that I was giving this to him. And then the way that I've done it is that I've been very real with the people who I can't have access to. So, for example, his own children who can't speak to him about this issue. That's family, right? So in family, you can't just walk away, right? But that's the way I'm always kind of approaching it. Also, always trying to base it in humanity. Like even, I have a neighbor here. I'm in Connecticut now, and I have a neighbor here who, voted for Trump, and he's a friend. So we kind of decided to not talk politics at first. And then he actually said, I want you to know I didn't vote for him a second time. And I was like, okay, well, thank you for sharing. I had to respect that he had said, don't talk to me about politics. I was like, okay. Now he wants to talk politics. I'm like, okay. This is going to happen a lot. I deal with these issues by being super transparent and by leading by example. And I'm going to give you another example. When the law in Texas that apparently was just halted by a judge, that abortions can in fact can take place in the state of Texas. But when the first came out restricting them, I spoke about the fact that I had two when I was a young woman. And so that's how I deal with it, is just by being very honest. Are you going to hate me? Are you going to call me a horrible name? I'm right here in front of you. I've been married for 30 years. I have 2 adult kids. So how can we understand each other? So I'm all about that kind of transparency and dialogue as much as you can. And I know it's challenging, but that's kind of how I try to move in the world.
We have some of our community college students who are wanting to pick your brain about advocacy. How would you recommend advocacy happen? And is there any way that people advocate that you think may cause more harm than good?
That's like such a big generalization. I think like if you're doing activist work, you're usually working in groups and having these kinds of conversations. And I would hope that part of the conversation is, what are we doing and for whom and why? I believe that activism should be motivated by the people who are involved, as opposed to up here telling you what to do. So I do believe that activism is a central part of American democracy. I don't consider myself an activist because I'm just simply trying to tell the truth and uncover the truth. And why should that be seen as an activist thing? That is my job. But I have such respect for activists, and I was one in college, and I know what it takes. It takes a lot. So I take the notion of being labeled an activist as quite serious. And were it not for activists, I don't know if we would have advanced as much in this country. But I'm hyper aware that everybody kind of has to choose their own path on this. I was very clear that I needed to take my kids to see, when they were little, to see a political protest on the street, because I wanted them to understand that it's activism on the street, but that it wasn't dangerous. And that, I think, is part of the notion that activism can be dangerous is a real terrible concept for democracy. So I'm all about expressing ourselves in every kind of activism, by going to the polls, by taking to the streets, by engaging in dialogue, by talking with each other. It's all a part of keeping democracy alive, in my view.
Thank you. We have some, let's see, some similar ones. So what are your thoughts on anti-Blackness and colorism in the Latinx community? What do you see, and how do you think we can navigate that?
I'm really taking my cues from Afro-Latinos, Afro-Mexicans, who are leading the conversation. So in this case, I have to really listen. I follow a lot of people on on Instagram that inspire me. I was just following a young woman who just got to Oaxaca, and she's there to, as a Black Latina, she's there to really do the research and work about what it is to be Afro-Mexican. And I'm like, yes, go share with us, make it visible. For me personally, very much creating a place where we can have a dialogue about this, because colorism in Latino and Latina community is real. As I did love In the Heights, but the criticism about colorism is also valid. And I think we all internalize, proximity to whiteness. We internalize it without even knowing. And so then when we have to look, like Marta Moreno Vega said, there are when these moments happen, when the centering of Black lives happens, because she's like, it doesn't happen all the time. But there are these moments, we have to actually take these as teaching moments, as learning moments. I'm hyper aware of it in terms of our reporting, in terms of, who we're speaking to, because we want to do better. And I don't always get it right. So I have to say, if I get something wrong, you've got to tell me. And I usually in those moments try to apologize and say, okay, let me try better next time. So I think acting with humility is really important. Being open to listening, being open to change your perspective, being open to ceding space, all super important. And I'm so, when I was a college student in the 1980s, this was just beginning to be talked about in my circle, because I was friends with many Panamanians. And so the conversation about Afro-Latinidad, also Dominicans, Cubanos, Puerto Ricanos. And I guess I just felt so appreciative of the conversation and never felt excluded from it at all. It was, let's increase the visibility and complexity of our community together. But colorism is real, for sure. And there is white supremacy throughout Latin America and among Latinos and Latinas in the United States, because you do not have to be white to participate in white supremacy.
Another topic that, is not always talked about in the Latino culture is about mental health. So how do you open up about mental health with your family? It's very common in our culture to hide it and just go on with your life. Any advice for our Latino students out there?
Wow, this is hard. Because I've seen the range, right? I've seen the range of my Latino and Latina students who, couldn't wait to leave home just so that they could get on the college campus, so that they could finally get on an antidepressant, because mom and dad did not believe that they were depressed. And nobody chooses to be depressed. It's something that happens, and it is a physical reality. It's not in your head, as we say. So I have seen that, and I have also worked with students who are very actively engaging in kind of taking control of their own mental health. And again, I just saw it today on my Instagram, self-love and meditation does not cure mental illness. And it's like, correct. There are some of us, myself included, where I can use working out, meditation, boxing, nature, connect. I mean, I can use all of these things as a way to heal myself. I will see my therapist, like this weekend, I'm like, God, I should have seen my therapist. Right now, it's a little bit tough, but I got to get back to seeing my therapist every 2 weeks. So the way I do it is that I kind of model what I'm trying to show. If you follow me on social media, on Twitter, on Instagram, that I talk about this, that, the meditation is there, that the boxing is there, and that it's always trying to communicate, like, this is one way in which I'm healing, but also creating space. So thank you so much for the question, because this is really challenging. And, many of our families don't know. I do tell my students that when your parents freak out because you're telling them, look, I'm feeling anxious and I can't handle it. I'm feeling depressed and I can't handle it. I think I have ADHD, or etc. Your parents, your family members are filled with fear. That's often what's motivating them, is that they're just terrified because they don't know what you're talking about or what you're going through, and they just want to help you. And they're just expressing that by maybe sometimes in not the best way, pushing you away, etc. So it's not easy. I acknowledge that, but you have got to find a way to help yourself. Al final de cuentas, nobody else is going to be able to do this but you, in the sense that I'm calling the therapist, I'm making the appointment with the psychiatrist, I'm going to go on the, and please be careful in terms of any medication, because it's dangerous, right? You really do have to be monitored. There are severe allergic reactions, so you just have to be monitoring it, right? See how you're feeling. But now is not a time to not be talking about it, and find the classes even where you are able to talk about this. So that even if it's just in a sense of your classroom community, you get a chance to feel more supported. But the struggle is real in terms of mental health, and you are not alone.
I want to thank you for being here and giving such wonderful advice and being so inspiring, just personally speaking, and also looking at some of the comments. Here we have, thank you so much. People are letting you know where they're from, Wenatchee and Bellingham. They are just resonating, representation matters. And I, say that again and things like that. So I just wanted to make sure you knew that
Oh,
that was
thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Find me on Instagram or on Twitter. If you get the book, take a picture of yourself with the book and send it to me. And I have a new newsletter. It's called Malu and You, and it drops every week. I forget what day, but it's a new bulletin. It's like a weekly newsletter. And if you sign up for it, it goes right into your inbox. And it's just some musings from me, kind of as a writer and as a compañera. So I hope you'll join me at Malu and You. You can find it. It's all in the links in the bio. And I hope to see you on Instagram and on Twitter, people. Thank you.
Yes.